probably broke his nose in the first round. His strongest punch was his most hesitant about striking, a little hesitant about getting clinched with. Honestly, what did happen? Oh yeah. Well, you know what? Honestly, that didn't look good. That looks like it was Denise. Good Great round for Jon Jones, and then even greater when you consider the fact that he's again. What a beautiful technique, and there's the knee. Watch the elbow.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Littelest Giant with me, your host, Cassidy Dunshay. This is my second episode, and tonight we'll be focusing on none other than Mr. Jon Jones. So, if you haven't heard of Jon Jones, I don't know you then. Either you have been taking a deep rest like Sleeping Beauty, you've been living under a rock, or you just don't care about UFC or MMA. Well, the light heavyweight champion of mixed martial arts that's currently holding that title is Mr. Jon Jones. Now, he comes from very humble beginnings, but like I said, he's a household name. And it is my duty this evening to explain to you how those humble beginnings turn into a household name, and whether or not that household name is, I don't know, kind of attached to some drama, or whether it's just his brother that's going through some tough times trying to make his way to the top. Well, let's go ahead and get Jon Jones was born July 19th, 1987. So he's an 80s baby, and he's a Cancer. Now, what I know about most Cancers is they're kind of like water. You know, they can pretty much mold themselves to anything. They're very emotional, and they love hard. So I can understand that grit that he has in him that just won't let up. But I also understand that with him being kind of in the middle of 4 children, that maybe gave him more of a family essence with moralistic values, to where you don't have the option to give up. Well, anyway, Jon Jones was born in Rochester, New York, to a father named Mr. Arthur Jones II, and a mother named Miss Camille Jones. Mr. Arthur II was a Pentecostal minister, and his mother was a nurse. Now, like I said, they had 4 children. So the first child was his oldest brother, Arthur III. Then there was Carmen. Then John. Then the baby boy, Chandler. So like I said, they grew up in Rochester, New York, where their father was a Pentecostal minister. And I guess considering that time frame in the 80s, when you have a mother that's a nurse and a father that's a minister, that's what you consider to be middle class, correct? So in this middle class system, he seemed to be doing fairly well. Well, the family was in general. But around the tender age of 11, his only sister, Carmen, got sick. They found that she had a brain tumor. And unfortunately, at the tender age of 17, Carmen passed away. So when Carmen passed away, it left the parents with just 3 boys. And obviously with these 3 boys, there's some phenomenal genes going on, because once they started with sports, there was no ending to that for either one of them. So in high school, Jon Jones was actually a defensive lineman. Okay, his older brother Arthur was also a lineman, playing football along with him, but that's where Jon found his niche. And actually, while he was playing lineman, his high school football coach said, "You know what, man, this dude is so tall and so lanky, I'm gonna just call him Bones." So that's actually how he got his nickname. So he didn't get the nickname Bones in MMA. He got his nickname in high school playing defensive lineman. But for Jon, it wasn't enough. Jon knew from an early age that he was a phenom. He knew that when it came to being an athlete, he was supreme, point blank. So he found himself dibbling and dabbling with wrestling. And that actually ended up being his niche, because he actually won the championship his senior year. Now, once Jon got into football in high school and then got out and found himself wrestling, then he had his younger brother Chandler to come up in the ranks and start playing football. Now, let's keep Arthur and Chandler in a little box by themselves because we're going to talk about them in a minute here. So, after Jon won the wrestling championship in high school, he found himself at Middle Iowa Community College. Now, let's back it up a little bit. While Jon was in high school, he met this young lady named Jessie Moses. That was his high school sweetheart, and they ended up dating all the way through high school. She went her separate way to a community college in New York, and he went his separate way to a community college in Iowa. Now, while he was in a community college in Iowa, he was there on a full wrestling scholarship. And wrestling did everything for him. It was fine. There was no issue, no complications. But at some point in time, somebody somewhere, unless it was him, introduced him to the wonderful art of mixed martial arts, which probably came along with that because I know when I was learning how to do Muay Thai, they also made me learn how to do Jiu-Jitsu. That's just to get off your back in case you find yourself in a compromising situation. So he might have ran into that and found great luck in it and said, you know what? I like doing this. So moving forward. So Jon Jones ended up dibbling and dabbling with MMA, and he actually won 6 fights in 3 months. They got the attention of the UFC, and they went and grabbed him up. So in 2008, at the age of 20 years old, Jon Jones became a professional MMA fighter. And that's where it all began. So Jon starts fighting in MMA, and he's taking names and kicking all type of butt around that cage. He's doing it all. In 2009, he found his first issue. At this point in time, he had won, but he lost 1 fight in 2009 per illegal elbows. Now, if you don't know anything about illegal elbows in MMA, it's something called a 12-6 elbow, right? And all that means is if you hold your arm and your fist like this, if the fist is on an imaginary clock and the fist is pointing to 12 and the elbow is down at 6, depending on how you come down on the opponent, you can cause serious damage or you can actually kill them. So he got caught up using that illegal elbow quite a few times. So there's like, nah, we can't let you have this championship this time, buddy. You got to go home, learn some technique, come back and try it again. And that's what he did. But once he started getting to the flow of MMA, some old habits started to come and intersect with him. And that's when Jon the addict started to show his true face. Jon Jones will selfly admit to anyone that he used to be a severe addict when it came to marijuana and a couple of other things with dealing with substance abuse, but it didn't start becoming prevalent until 2012. So in 2012, Jon found himself driving upstate of New York, and he actually was under the influence. He ran into a guardrail. He hurt himself. Didn't hurt himself too bad, but he got caught up. And they kind of slapped him on the wrist, told him, hey, watch yourself behind the wheel. You should be fine. He knew he needed to seek help then, but he didn't because that one pretty much flew under the wire. But this time in 2015, he got caught up to where there was no escaping this one. So Jon found the genius idea of going to a rent-a-car place, renting a silver SUV, and he was going to just joyride through New Mexico, right? Well, he's joyriding, ends up going through a red light, hitting a vehicle, and making that vehicle hit another vehicle. Well, in the moment, Jon thought it was smart to just leave the vehicle running. He just got out and ran. Where are you, Jon? So if that wasn't enough, he came back. But he came back to get the wads of money he left in the SUV, only to get out the car again and go run, and witnesses say he hopped the fence. Yeah, he hopped the fence. So he did not stay for that. Now, we're going to give him some gold stars on this situation while explaining it. Number one, gold star number one, he evaded the police for 24 hours. Number two, the person that he hit in the first vehicle was a pregnant woman. who was stuck in the car. Yeah. Star number 3, he left the vehicle running. And star number 4, when the police arrived, they found a marijuana pipe, they found ID, they found paraphernalia that was insinuating things about the UFC and an upcoming fight and basically saying, hey, here's the evidence, come find me. Come find me, police officers. Because that's exactly what he did. And then the very next day, he turned himself in, ladies and gentlemen. He turned himself in. He said how remorseful he was and how he just was better than this and how he didn't want this to ruin his life and how he had all his family and friends that was supporting him. And he was ready. And he went and enrolled in a rehab center. And 24 hours later, he got out the rehab center. It just took one day of rehab. It just took one. It just took one. Now, the next situation, I want to just put out there what the issue was. But then I want to also go back and talk about the beef, which created this situation. There is some major beef between him and this fighter named Daniel Cormier. He was supposed to fight Cormier, I want to say, for the second time in July of 2016. But when they got in the ring, he failed the drug test because he was high on cocaine. He was high on cocaine, which from what I hear stays in your system for maybe a couple of hours. So you mean to tell me you couldn't toot in the morning and leaving alone until the next day? Apparently not. Apparently not. But they still let him fight. They still let him fight. We're going to get back to that beef here in a minute. But let's do the continuation of why he stripped. Now, in 2015, he was stripped of that title because of the hit and run. But then it was reinstated. Then he was stripped of his title again when they found cocaine in his system. But then he was reinstated. And that brings us all the way up to these recent years here. So last year, 2018, a couple of months ago, he was accosted by the police for drag racing. If that wasn't enough, when the police officer pulled him over, he went back and forth with this banter. And I guess the police officer felt like he was being disrespectful. So he wrote him not 1, not 2, but 3 tickets. And he was stripped of that title again, only for it to be given back. Now, let's talk about recent events. UFC 232. He was supposed to be fighting in Las Vegas, but he couldn't get the license because once they tested his system for an illegal substance, they found that he still had trace marks of that illegal substance that made him banned for a year prior before. Now, they made it very clear that it was nothing that he just recently consumed. There was still traces of that leaving his system. But because that he couldn't get licensing to fight in Vegas, so they had to move the entire venue all the way to Los Angeles. He fought this guy named Gustafsson. Well, they ended up fighting and he won, but now there's this big deal about him, whether or not he's a drug addict, whether or not he plays clean, whether or not he should even be allowed to play because he's had so many chances. And I'll be honest with you, it seems like to me it's a big deal when a person can have an entire MMA, UFC venue move from one state to the next. And I understand the licensing that's involved, but it just seems like when everybody else isn't clean, they just don't fight. But maybe with him grossing $10 million so far with the UFC, he might be a breadwinner to where they know that people are going to watch and people are going to bet, they're going to come to that fight. So off politics, Jon has a long way to go. He really does. Now let's back it up with this beef with him and Daniel Cormier. During a promotional tour, they got into an all-out brawl to the point to where Jon was fined $50,000 and Daniel was fined $9,000 plus community service. So people want to know where did they come from. I got the long story short. Long story short, one day, Jon Jones found himself in the same vicinity as Daniel Cormier. He went up to Daniel Cormier to introduce himself, but the way that Jon went about it was very, very wrong. Now, Jon is 6'4". Daniel Cormier might be 6 feet, maybe 6'1". He's got a couple of inches on him, okay? So he walked up to Jon and was looking down on him He was like, hey, what's up, man? You know, I heard about you. I heard that you are this Olympic wrestler. You know, what's going on? I think I can actually take you down. So Daniel Cormier was like, well, I don't know you. You mean to tell me that you've never heard of me, but you want to come over here saying that you want to take me down? He was like, oh, man, don't take it so serious. I'm just looking at you. I ain't never heard of you. I'm just saying, and I just feel like I can take you down. And so Daniel was like, well, I feel like that's very disrespectful for you to come up to me like that. I've been in this game for a while, and no, you can't just take me down because I have technique. You do know who I am. Don't play with me. I don't like you. Get out of my face. You're not cool. That was the beginning of that beef. So when the first fight that they had, he beat Daniel Cormier. He did. And then when he wanted to do a rematch, then that was the cocaine situation that was caught in his system. And he still fought again and still won and beat Daniel Cormier again. So that beef has not subsided. Daniel Cormier still wants to fight him. But Jon Jones is like, I'm good. I don't need to fight him. I've proven my point. He's not better than me. I don't care. Fortunate thing about all of this beef is that because Jon Jones is such a household name and became so good and so prevalent for UFC, that Nike wanted him to be the face of Nike in regards to MMA fighting. He had a single contract, the largest contract. I think it was like 6 figures for one person. And after that situation, they didn't want to stand behind him anymore. So he ended up losing that. And he probably also lost it because of his past abuse with substance abuse. He really did. And in the interview with Joe Rogan, he admitted that he has a child that's older than the first child with the baby mama. He got engaged to her in 2015, but they never got married. She's still holding her last name, so whatever. And he's been stripped of his title twice. So, Jon, you got some splaining to do, man. You got some splaining to do. So, with all that being said, we got a hit and run, addicted to marijuana and cocaine, beef with Cormier. People think he takes illegal substances / steroids to do whatever he does, even though I think he's just a natural, raw, talented athlete. And then you have him that's a part of a band of brothers, because his older brother Arthur has played for the Ravens, he's played for the Colts, and he's played for the Patriots. And then the younger brother Chandler plays for the Cardinals. Alright? So, there's nothing but powerful genes in between all three of them. So, irregardless of MMA, Jon will still find his way somewhere. So, what we have to look forward to is the next fight. I don't know which number. I think it's UFC 234 or 235. He will be fighting against Anthony Smith. That's going to be a really good fight because him and Anthony Smith are both tall. They're both lanky. They're both about the same height, about the same reach. And I honestly think that, Jon is going to win this one, but I think that Anthony Smith is going to give him a run for his money. He's going to put his money where his mouth is. He's going to put all of that, because one thing I can say about Jon is not cocky at all. He just knows that he is the best at what he does. He has no questions about it on himself. He knows he's the best. So this is going to be a really, really, really good fight to watch. So this March 2nd, it should be in Vegas. As long as everybody's blood is clean and they get licensed to play in Vegas, it will be there. We're going to try our very best to cover that. But, hey, Littelest Giant is just now starting off. We kicking off. We doing something good. All right. So, if you didn't know anything about Jon Jones, now you know about Bones this evening. I tried to give you the small details, I tried to give you the big details, and I tried to give you some information leading up to his current situation as of right now. So hopefully you become a fan of Jon Jones, or you'll watch him strategically and see what he does, because it's very interesting. Okay? So I want to thank you guys so much for watching me this evening. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel, and I hope that you stay tuned with me in the future to start listening to my podcast, which would be much better because I also have a co-host with me. We'll get to talk about things more in depth. We'll get to crack some jokes and put some personalized information up in there. It's just going to get better from here, guys. So I thank you so much for your patience with me, with the Littelest Giant. And it has been so much fun explaining and talking about sports to you guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Keep your thoughts good and your heart in the right place, and you will have an amazing life.
And the way they roll, just rebels without a cause, with no place to go, and so they kick, push, kick, push, kick, push, kick, push, coast. So come roll with me, just a rebel, looking for a place to be, so let's kick.